Strange women lying in ponds distributing swords is no system of government. But it does happen to be a good system for deck building. Welcome, we are here with my Noble Knights January 2020 deck profile. The new format has come in and I didn't know what to play, so when in doubt, we stick with the reliable. So we are back with one of my favorites, Noble Knights. Let's hop into the deck and see what we're doing and what these cards do and why swords are so much fun. So here we are. We have main deck, extra deck, side deck. Very, very unusual. And we have our field center, of course. We need a sword in the stone for when we are playing our Noble Knights. And yeah, let's just hop into it. So for people who aren't familiar with Noble Knights, they are from the Xyz era of sets. They are one of the first TCG exclusive archetypes. And they are really cool. They're based off Artorian mythology. And definitely just one of the most flavorful decks ever printed. Burning Abyss is also very flavorful, but I'd argue that mechanically, Noble Knights has more material to work with, and definitely really the cards do a fantastic job of matching what they represent. Monster cards. We have Tree summons a guy from deck and pops an equip spell. Malebranches is part of the original combo with Boars. Boars lets us reveal Tree Noble Arms from deck. Opponent picks one randomly and the rest go to the graveyard. The one that they pick goes to our hand. So the classic combo is these guys are both level 5s when they're equipped with a spell. So you equip a spell to him, he summons him, destroys the spell, equips it to him, and then this guy searches the spell, put it on him, make a rank 5, and happy days. Boars has become better because he has found his chalice, and Malebranches has become worse because we want more than 2 monsters. We have Noble Knights Brothers. This card gets us more than 2 monsters. When it's normal summoned, we summon up to 2 more Noble Knights from our hand. He can only attack if we have exactly 3 Noble Knights. He also locks us into Noble Knights, and we can once per turn, not hard once per turn, but just once per turn, target up to 3 Noble Knight and Noble Arms cards in our graveyard, shuffle them into the deck, draw 1 card. So this guy really likes trees. He's also 2,400 defense on a level 4 monster, which is actually really big. And he just lets us go infinite, lets us get monsters on board. He's great, he's fantastic. Everybody needs some brothers to get by. Noble Knight Custenin. So this is one of the new Noble Knight cards. If you control a Noble Arms equip spell, you can special summon him from your hand. And then if he's used material for a Noble Knight summon, basically the monster gains the ability to give you an additional normal summon for Noble Knights and locks you into Noble Knights. So this guy is great. He means any knight plus an equip spell is no longer a brick because you can at least climb into a level or into a rank 4 Xyz. So yeah, he's really good. I was not crazy about him when he first came out, but I've definitely been won over. We have one Guinevere, Queen of Noble Arms. This card can attach itself from hand or graveyard to a Noble Knight as a hard once per turn. Becomes an equipped spell, gives 300 attack. If it's equipped to a light monster, that monster can't be destroyed by card effect once per turn. And if it's attached to a dark monster, when the dark monster battles, you can destroy the monster it's battling, and then send Guinevere to the graveyard. So kind of cool, gives you utility with a Catastor-like effect, which is a lot of fun. Then we have one Noble Knight Ector. I was testing this card, not crazy about it. It's banish 2 Noble Knights from grave, special summon it from graveyard, and if it's used for a summon of a Noble Knight, Synchro or Xyz, your opponent can't negate the summon, and also can't respond on the summon. So it's kind of cool, but it's like way too late game. The deck struggles the most in the early game, so not what we want. Ivan, pretty cool. When he's equipped, he summons a token. While he's equipped, all your other Noble Knights gain 500 attack, so this guy gives us kill pressure, but he also doesn't make Xyz monsters very easily, so we're only testing him at 1 at the moment. He could play 2. I'm not convinced 2 is the right amount. Then we have our bricks. So we have 6 swords. Why do we have 6 swords? Because there are 6 swords with good names for Noble Arms. And we need enough that when we summon Isolde, we can actually summon a Noble Knight from our deck. So just quickly, the effects can't be targeted, equipped monster can't be destroyed once per turn, Equipped monster gains 500 attack points, we can gain life points. Gallatin gain 1,000 attack points, lose 200 every standby. Permanently make the monster lose 500 attack. Target a set card, destroy it if it's still set on resolution, and then pay 500 life points, the monster can attack directly. Then additionally, it's important that these 5 spells re-equip themselves if they're destroyed to a Noble Knight once per turn. So it means that they're kind of floaty. And then this one, if it's in graveyard, except a turn is sent to the graveyard, you can banish it and rank up magic one of your Noble Knight exceeds. So the swords are really good, but we never want to draw them, but they do basically give all of the effects to the exceeds to actually make them good. Then we have Until Noble Arms Are Needed once again. This is the card that made Boars so much better, because Boars can now reveal 3 copies of this card, guarantee 1 goes to our hand, and then the rest go to the graveyard. When this is activated, we excavate cards from top of deck equal to the number of face-up Noble Arms spells we control, and then we can add 1 of those to our hand, put the rest back in any order, which is really good. It means that we can get hand traps for interaction, which means instead of having our guy who is just a roadblock, we can get our Ash Blossoms and our Ogres and our Veilers and anything else, and hope to stop the opponent from actually doing stuff to us. And then also you can banish this from the graveyard except a turn it was sent, to special summon a Noble Knight that we don't control or have in our graveyard. So really good card, makes Boars a lot better. And then we have our final Noble card. We have Heritage of the Chalice. So this lets us add a Noble Knight, our Noble Arms card from deck or graveyard to hand, and then also if a Noble Knight equipped with a spell dies by battle, we can add this from our graveyard to our hand. So this is really great. It fixes a lot of our hands, and yeah, it's just fantastic. Then we have Rota, because we're playing Warriors. We have triple Ghost Ogre. We have triple Ash Blossom. We have triple Infinite Impermanence, and we have triple Solemn Judgment. So the reason we're playing these cards is we just need a bunch of cards that slow down the opponent, because we cannot go fast in the first turns of the game, so we need them to slow down, and we just need to interact with them as much as we can. You can realistically try any sort of combination with this. I think Judgments are important, I think Ashes are pretty core, but you could replace the triple Impermanence and triple Ogre with any other sets of hand traps, depending on what you find good at the time. You could play something like Kaijus as well if you wanted to, but you are often locked into Noble Knights, so that becomes kind of difficult. Then we have our extra deck. We are playing triple original Artorgius. When he summons, he equips up to 3 spells from graveyard to himself, and then he can detach a material during our turn to destroy spell and trap cards on the field up to the number of spells without targeting. So he's pretty good. He's our main 4 at the moment, because you summon a 4 off Isolde, and as long as you have another 4 on board, you make this guy equip the spells, and then your trap card is live, getting to excavate 3. So pretty good. Then we have triple Isolde, 2 Tales of the Noble Knights. This card is really good in any hand where we have access to 3 guys on the board, because it means we can end on Isolde plus our Artorgius. Otherwise, we just end on Isolde plus Noble Knight Brothers, which is pretty underwhelming, but sometimes that's all you need. So card is good. Is it the best card in the deck? Probably not, but it's still good enough that we play it. We're not playing the best Isolde deck, but it is still an Isolde deck. Then we have Sacred Noble Knight of King Custennin. So this guy lets us bounce opponents' cards, and then also if this guy is destroyed, we get to special summon a Noble Knight Exceeds from our extra deck and attach him as a material. So it means that he's kind of floaty, and we can basically have like 1 normal king plus this guy, and then he'll float into a king and re-equip spells if needed. And then also we have 2 Sacred Noble Knight of King Artorgius. This guy again attaches spells on summon. He can destroy a monster on the field by detaching a material during our turn, and then if he leaves the field, we summon a level 4 or higher Noble Knight from our graveyard. So he's great to go into off Custennin, because it means you get 3 monsters for the price of 1. And again, early in the game, we just need to float and stay alive, because as we get later into the game, you build up so much advantage that you just kind of grind the opponent out. Then finally, there are 4 flex spots. So because everything locks you into Noble Knights, it's really hard to determine what cards these should be, as they come up very infrequently. Cowboy is kind of cute, because it's just Cowboy, just gives you time advantage, and you can like equip a sword to him to make him really big. But yeah, so he's like fine because sometimes you don't have caliber and then you need something for time, if you aren't locked into Noble Knights. Emerald, the more I think about it, this Emerald just doesn't make any sense because we already have infinite Emerald style effects with our Noble Knight brothers. So yeah, don't need Emerald. I would consider playing a Boral Sword Dragon here, a Boraload Dragon here, just anything that's big and deals with problems. Particularly untargetable monsters are very difficult for us to beat over if they're bigger than 3,700 attack. The maximum attack that you can have on board is a 4,000 attack point or Artorgius, and anything that is bigger than that, you cannot clear. So things like Boraload become very good. Side deck, it is all just stuff to stop our opponent doing things, because again, if they get carried away with themselves, it's very hard for us to catch up early in the game. So we're playing 1 Gamma Seal, we're playing triple Droll, triple Gamma, 1 Driver, 2 Skullmeister. Again, this is pretty ropey at the moment. You can play whatever you feel like. Gamma is really questionable because after turn 1, it's super dead. So if we think they're going to go first and then they make us go first and we have Gamma in our hand, then we have to hope that like they ash us or something. But the idea is that Gamma and Droll are both super high impact, so they're the best at stopping the opponent doing stuff when the opponent goes first. Gamma Seal goes over things like Appaloosa, and then Skullmeister is generic and just what I had on hand at the time. And then finally, we just have our Spell and Trap card removal. There are things like there can be only 1, which we cannot interact with in the format, so you need to have ways to out them. You could play like Twin Twisters instead of the MSTs, or you could play Twin Twisters instead of the Dusters, and then play Cosmic Cyclones instead of MSTs. This isn't a set in stone, but it's just kind of the general idea is you need to have sufficient removal for spells and traps for the Floodgate decks, because that's half of the format, and then you need to have some sort of combination of cards that are very good against the monster decks. But again, until we have a better idea of the current format, it's really hard to tell what you need of the side deck here. Yeah, so I mean, this is basically the Noble Knight deck. It is really good once it gets later into the game. Decks like Salad and Striker, you can really just outgrind them because you just have infinite resources. You have cards like this that are recurring. You have big impact cards that are relatively slow, like the Artorgius, especially if he has an equipped spell on him, making him untargetable. Something like Striker can really suffer. And then you also have the brothers, and if you manage your brothers, you can basically just keep your deck going forever. So you can just make sure that you're always on resources and that you're generating 2 cards per turn into their 1 card per turn, and just win the game that way. So yeah, that's Noble Knights. Let me know what you think about the deck. I really love the deck. Might do a lore video at some point, because the actual interactions of these cards between their game mechanics and what they actually represent. Brothers is actually a terrible example. But cards like Boars and cards like Madrout are really interesting, and they show some really interesting game design. So definitely something that I love to talk about. But yeah, without further ado, thank you very much for joining us. If you play Noble Knights, or you're considering playing Noble Knights, feel free to let us know what you think down in the comments. I'll be keeping an eye on them and discussing kind of the theory of Noble Knights in general. And otherwise, thank you very much for watching. Please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, as they do help us create more content. And we will be back tomorrow with Tom playing live from locals. So stay tuned, and we will catch you soon.